Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to this video where I am basically going to be showing you how to get the best results out of the new Hero 13 from GoPro and doing a complete setup walkthrough from scratch. I'll be sharing the exact settings and different presets that I use on a daily basis. And I'm going to be covering all the settings that you need to know whether you're a pro or this is your first GoPro ever. Before I get to those more pro settings and also talk about all the really cool lenses that GoPro has just announced, I'm going to boot my GoPro up from scratch, do a full setup walkthrough, and then just cover kind of a general overview of the best settings. Okay, so I'm gonna boot this thing up, boom, and when you first get into the camera, it's gonna display the GoPro logo, and then you pick your language first. So I'm gonna do English, agree to all the legal stuff. GPS, I'm gonna turn that on. They actually just introduced GPS back into GoPros. They didn't have it. Voice control, let's turn that on. Click the language for that. And then if you want to use your app to control your GoPro, you can scan this barcode and then just automatically sync it to the app. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just gonna not do that, hit the back button, skip setup, and then I'm gonna pick my time zone. So for me, I'm in Denver, boom. Daylight savings, yes, unfortunately. Then I'm gonna set the date and then we should be onto the home screen. In the beginning, it's gonna automatically have your GoPro on easy mode, but by turning on pro settings and doing a little tweaks, your footage is gonna be that much better. So that's what we're gonna do. So let's turn that on. Basically slide down, slide over, click controls, and then slide that up to pro controls. So for this first one, I'm gonna make just kind of a general preset. Whenever you wanna just grab your GoPro, go out hiking, hang out with friends, and just capturing what you see. Then after this preset, I'll get more into my cinematic presets. All right, so we're gonna open this up, press the edit tab, and basically in here, we have a bunch of different profiles. These just kind of control whether or not you want to post-process your footage or you just want it straight out of the camera. For this preset, we just want to have it straight out of the camera ready to share. So I'm gonna go standard, and then here we have a bunch of different aspect ratios, which basically is just how your shot is framed, whether it's horizontal, vertical, a mix between the two. So for this, we're just gonna do 16:9, which is that classic like YouTube look like you're watching right now. And then we're gonna bump up to 5.3K, and 4K versus 5.3K doesn't really sound like a big difference, but it's actually a massive difference, and you're gonna like the results way more at 5.3K. And then for frame rate, we're gonna do 60. That just allows you to kind of slow the footage down afterwards if you want some type of slow-mo. If you don't care about that, you can always switch the frame rate to 30, but it's always nice to be able to slow it down if you want. Digital lens width, I always go with the widest one possible. So we're gonna go with super view on that one. Hyper smooth, you want that on. You can also turn on auto boost, which basically just crops the image in a little bit, but is more stable. GoPro's hyper smooth is honestly really freaking good. So we're just gonna leave that on normal. Coming down here, capture, we're not gonna mess with that. But getting into Pro Tune, these are some important settings. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is change from 8-bit to 10-bit. 10-bit just has a lot more information in each pixel. Bit rate, instead of standard, I'm not really sure why these come with a standard bit rate, maybe just to maximize SD card speeds or something, but we're gonna wanna switch that to high. Shutter, we're gonna leave auto for now. EV comp is an important one. For some reason, GoPros like to overexpose a slight bit in most situations. So we're gonna move this down to -0.5, and that'll darken your image a slight bit, but honestly, usually it gets it perfect. White balance auto, ISO min auto, ISO max auto. Sharpness is set to medium. We're gonna turn that down to low. Action cameras tend to add a little bit too much sharpness to videos, and it just kind of gives it that like action camera look. So we're gonna wanna turn that all the way down. You can always add sharpness later, but you can never take it away. So that's why we do low. Denoise, we're gonna keep that on high. Color, for this, we are gonna keep that on natural. Audio, we're not gonna mess with that. And then shortcuts are just kind of like these presets like you see on the home page. You can kind of see these little bubbles here. I'm not gonna mess with that for now. Now, if you want to shoot something that is a little bit more slow-mo, you can actually come down and do 4K 120, and that's just gonna give you the flexibility in post to really slow your stuff down. So think of high action sports where you just really want that nice cinematic slow motion. You can always do that. And if you really wanna go slow-mo, you can go down to 2.7 240 frames per second. That's just gonna give you crazy slow motion. And after that, you're pretty much good to go. These settings are gonna give you a much better result than just leaving the camera on easy auto mode. Okay, so now let's get into more of the pro settings. And if you are someone who's gonna be editing your footage later on, these are the settings that you're gonna wanna use. The biggest change, in my opinion, from the Hero 12 to the Hero 13 are these new lens attachments that auto detect, which is a complete game changer because it just makes getting super cinematic shots just that much easier. So before we dive into the more pro settings, I have a quick word from a longtime channel sponsor, Motion Array. So if you're watching this video, odds are you're gonna end up editing your videos. Now, if you're like me, the actual shooting of the videos is the fun part, but the harder part is when you come back and edit your videos, especially when it comes to things like motion graphics. And the sponsor of today's video is basically a tool that has made my editing life way easier throughout the years, and that is Motion Array. Motion Array is basically a massive library of video templates, stock footage, photos, music, and sound effects. Basically everything you need to make your videos better. For example, the title animations that you've seen all throughout this video, that's all from Motion Array. Each one comes with detailed instructions and is super easy to customize. Another thing that I use for Motion Array that you've seen in this video and are going to continue to keep seeing in this video is something called picture-in-picture. It's just a super easy way to get that little like talking head box effect. Another one of the big things that I use Motion Array for is sound effects. Especially when I'm editing FPV footage, I use sound effects to just really get the viewer immersed in the video. When you get FPV clips, they sound like this. Which sounds horrible, but with a quick jungle sound effect, some ocean sound effects, and some good old whooshes, the clip ends up looking like this. As you can see, it's really just an all-in-one place to get a ton of stuff to make your videos better. One of the nice things about it is it's membership-based. So you just sign up for a month or a year and you get access to everything, and usage is unlimited. There's a link down in the description below if you do want to check it out. And if you use that link, you'll get $50 off an annual subscription. Thank you, Motion Array, for supporting my channel and just making an amazing product. All right, now let's get back to the video. All right, so let's get back to the pro settings. First, I'll cover a couple things that I didn't touch on in the more beginner settings, like color profiles, and then I will get into the lens attachments. And the biggest change is the color profile. So you have either standard, HDR, or log. The log, to be honest, in the Hero 12, I wasn't that big of a fan of it, although it did help in certain scenarios where the dynamic range was really crazy. For example, like sunset or something where you're flying inside and you can see windows where it's really bright outside. The log is definitely improved on this camera, so I'm definitely probably going to be using log once in a while, but for this, I'm gonna keep it at standard. HDR is also super interesting. I actually really like using HDR, honestly, over log because it kind of gives you the same look, but it doesn't give you quite as flat of an image and it's a little easier to post-process. Going down, I always shoot basically everything in 8x7. One really cool thing about the new Hero 13 is you can actually get a 1:1 aspect ratio if you're using the ultra wide lens, which, like I said, I'm about to get to in a second. So basically what 8x7 and 1:1 does is it allows you to crop either horizontally or vertically, which is super nice because I make videos for YouTube, but I also make videos for Instagram. So if I'm shooting 8x7, I can either crop it vertically or horizontally, and it looks good either way. So I always shoot on 8x7. I'm also gonna definitely click 5.3K. Sometimes I will shoot 4K 60 if I need something a lot slower, but primarily 5.3K 30. The new 13 also does have the option to shoot a 5-second burst at 5.3K 120. So if you are shooting some type of high action where you know exactly when you're gonna want the slow motion, you can definitely use that and it looks amazing. My friend Chris Rogers made a super good review video about the 13, so you guys can definitely go check that out. But for now, we're gonna stick with that. And then I do stabilization in post with a program called Real Steady, which is from GoPro. Hypersmooth is pretty stable, but it's just not absolutely perfect. So usually when I'm shooting, unless it's something that doesn't need to be crazy stable, I have my Hypersmooth off. So going down to the capture, nothing changes there. So once we get down to Pro Tune, same thing here. Definitely go to 10-bit. Bitrate high. And the biggest thing with this new camera is the auto lens detection. So shutter, if you're gonna wanna get really super cinematic videos, you're gonna wanna make your shutter speed double whatever your frame rate is. So if I'm shooting 5.3K 30, I'm definitely gonna want my shutter at 1/60. More on that in a second when I get to the auto detect NDs. But for now, everything else is the same. I usually only have my ISO max at like 400 because anything over that, you can kind of push it to 800, but anything over 400 is just a little bit noisy. Sharpness, again, I'm gonna go low with that. Denoise high. And color, you have a couple options. You can go flat, you can go natural, or you can go vibrant. I always go natural. Whenever I'm with the GoPro team, they also shoot in natural color profile. A lot of people swear by log, but honestly, I feel like you're just saturating back to what you were before. So I usually shoot on natural. All this other stuff is the same. So I'm gonna hit create. I'm just gonna call it air, boom. And now we're gonna get into the other lenses. First thing is going to be these ND filters. So these ND filters, like I said, are a massive game changer for me just because they auto detect. So before these ND filters, I would have to put my ND filter on, go into the settings, check all my settings and make sure they're all right. But these ND filters, you put them on and it'll tell you whether or not you need to go up or you need to go down. I'll show you an example right now. So I am going to grab the ND16, which I'm inside right now, so it's definitely gonna be too much of an ND. So I'm gonna pop this on. And now when this pops up, you can see right here, it has a little down arrow, which tells you the ND is too strong. So if I switch over, and likely 4 might be a little bit too much also, but we'll see. So I'm gonna switch to 4, and yeah, that's a little bit too much as well. It's only just because I'm inside. If I was outside, it basically is just gonna tell you exactly what it is. And a cool thing that it has is if I go back to here, it actually has a auto cinematic shutter. So if you come down here with one of the ND filters on, you're gonna get a couple different settings. So one is motion blur. So if you want a ton of motion blur, you can actually set this to high instead of auto and get just that much better motion blur. And then also you can come down here and you can select your shutter speed, or you can just hit auto cinematic, which basically just adjusts the frame rate of the footage while you're going, like from second to second, to make sure that you have the proper shutter speed, which is so nice. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten shots and it seemed like the ND filter was perfect right at the beginning, and then by the end of the shot, it's completely too dark or completely blown out. So this is gonna be a massive game changer for me, just for ease of use. Now, if you are someone who has ND filters from previous GoPros, you definitely don't need to upgrade. They do fit on the new camera, and one thing you can do is you can actually slide down, come to this, and then you can pick which lens you want on it. So if you have an ND32, you can just select ND32 and it'll still do that auto cinematic shutter thing. So for now, I'm gonna go back to auto, and then I wanna talk about the macro lens and the ultra wide lens. So I'm gonna swap these, and then I'm gonna come in, and like I said, the biggest thing about these new lenses is the auto detect. This ultra wide lens is actually the exact same as the max lens 2.0. There's literally no difference about it except that it has auto detect. So as soon as I put that lens on, it auto detects that it's on ultra wide. And one cool thing that you can change to with the ultra wide is a 1:1 aspect ratio. So that's literally just a perfect square, and definitely something that I will be using because it's even better than the 8x7 that's already on there. And then the last lens that I'm gonna talk about is the macro attachment, because that's another massive thing that GoPros kind of struggle with, is once you get between like 1 and 2 inches away from the GoPro, everything is kind of all blurry and just doesn't look really nice. So having this is going to help a ton whenever you're shooting something close up to your camera. All right, so the macro lens is on, and the really cool thing about it is just the fact that it has a focus ring. So if I have something that's like the camera, for example, that's literally right up next to the camera, I can just adjust the focus ring and get that perfectly in focus, or I can spin this and it makes the background in focus. So for anyone who's vlogging or trying to do like cooking videos or anything like that, the macro lens is super, super helpful. All right guys, so that does it for the walkthrough and best video settings for the new Hero 13. I know the end got a little lengthy there. There's honestly just so much to talk about with the new lenses and new features on the camera. And I'm definitely gonna be making a bunch more videos on the Hero 13 going forward. So definitely make sure you subscribe if you don't wanna miss any of those videos. But if you don't wanna subscribe, I still love you. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.